Hi, welcome back to the channel. Honestly, it was only a matter of time before Mother Gothel stepped in, and sure enough, here she is, once again inserting herself into her daughter's relationship. She reminds her daughter that her relationship is supposedly between her and God, then turns around and comments on it publicly, on camera, and somehow makes the whole thing about herself. Classic move. She even tosses in that familiar line about how a man is not a financial plan, which, given her own history, lands with a bit of irony. What we're really seeing here is Robyn Brown trying to interfere in Aurora's relationship. On the surface, the scene is framed as something tender and loving, a mother spending time with her adult daughter. But let's be clear, Aurora is 23 years old, and her mother still hasn't allowed her to move out of the house. Now that Aurora is starting to show some independence, Robyn seems threatened. The boyfriend appears to represent something Robyn can't control, and that doesn't sit well with her. It's hard not to wonder what the real issue is. Maybe Brody isn't part of the same religious bubble. Maybe Aurora is finally making decisions for herself. Or maybe Robyn simply doesn't like losing her grip. Whatever the reason, it doesn't stop her from quietly planting seeds of doubt, while also, of course, redirecting the conversation back to her own experiences. Because yes, Robyn absolutely used Kody for financial stability, so the advice hits a little different coming from her. In this scene, Robyn and Aurora are baking cookies together. Robyn explains that she enjoys spending one-on-one time with her kids whenever Kody is out of town. On the surface, that sounds sweet enough. During the conversation, Robyn acknowledges that Aurora and Brody are in a real relationship now, not just a phase or a casual thing. Aurora shares how excited she is about their upcoming trip. Brody is graduating from basic training, and they're planning to go see him. By this point, they've been dating for almost a year. This isn't some vague situationship. They've defined the relationship, and they're taking it seriously. Robyn presses a little further, asking if they're viewing the relationship as potentially long-term. Aurora says yes, and adds that they're praying about it constantly. That exchange feels heavy. Robyn's tone comes across less like curiosity and more like pressure, the kind that only a deeply religious parent can apply. It's subtle, but the guilt is there, hanging in the air. What makes it even stranger is the contradiction that follows. When Robyn speaks directly to Aurora, she's pushing the seriousness of the relationship, almost interrogating her about it. But in her one-on-one interview, Robyn claims she wants Aurora to quote-unquote find herself and experience life on her own. That statement feels hollow when you remember that Aurora still isn't allowed to move out. If you truly want your child to find herself, you don't keep her under constant supervision. You encourage independence. You let her get her own place, make her own choices, and figure things out. Instead, it feels like Aurora is being kept in a carefully controlled environment, safe, sheltered, and monitored. Wanting independence while refusing to grant it doesn't really add up. Robyn seems to need a lot of validation from her kids. Their attention, their dependence, their approval, it all appears to fuel her sense of worth. At times, it feels like she views her children less as individuals and more as extensions of themselves. And when one of those extensions starts pulling away, even just a little, the insecurity kicks in fast. So what's framed as a gentle bonding moment ends up revealing something much deeper: control, fear of loss, and a mother struggling to let her adult daughter grow up. And that tension, you can feel it even while the cookies are baking. Maybe Robyn has her own regrets. Maybe she wishes she'd taken more time to find herself instead of settling down so early and getting completely absorbed into that life. Or maybe she's been controlling her kids for so long that she truly believes she still gets a vote in their adult relationships. Either way, it's deeply strange. Because listen to what she says in her talking head. I want her to live on her own. I want her to find herself. Sure you do, totally. Except in that very same breath, she's already laying the groundwork to explain why this guy might not be the right one. And let's be honest, if she actually approved of Brody, we wouldn't be hearing any of this. Then Robyn shifts gears and starts talking about plural marriage in their church. She explains that in their faith, it was acceptable to consider just about anyone. And that's when she launches into her story. She remembers being in the car with Kody one day when she was suddenly overcome by the Spirit of God. She says she couldn't even speak. Tears were running down her face. And she felt God telling her, this is your person. This is your forever. This is the family you're meant to be with. Now, this scene is doing double duty. On one level, it's Robyn trying to rewrite history, to clean it up a bit. She's presenting the idea that she wasn't a homewrecker because, in that church, everyone was technically available. Polygamy made it acceptable, so therefore she didn't do anything wrong. And then comes the second part of the narrative laundering. According to Robyn, being with Kody wasn't even her choice. It was God's choice. God told her. God revealed it to her. God sent her a message right there in the car. So, in that version of events, she didn't break up a family. God did. She didn't bring her kids into dysfunction. God did. She didn't choose an illegal lifestyle. God did. She didn't manipulate, sabotage, or destabilize an entire family system. Nope. That was all part of God's divine plan. Convenient, right? Because if God told her to do it, then she can't possibly be the villain.
She's not a homewrecker, you guys. She's divinely appointed. She's practically the prophetess of the situation. So godly, so chosen. Back in the kitchen, the conversation turns back to Aurora. Robyn says, "I guess we'll see," and reminds her that it's really between her and God and Brody to some extent. Aurora responds thoughtfully, saying for her, it's between herself, God, and her. Honestly, that answer sounds pretty mature. But then Robyn drops that line. A man should not be a financial plan for a woman. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. She frames it as concern about confidence and identity, about Aurora needing to know who she is before becoming a wife or a mother. She talks about how women can lose themselves in those roles, how important it is to understand your own thoughts and feelings first. On the surface, that advice sounds reasonable, but in context, it feels pointed. Because Robyn is absolutely sowing seeds of doubt here. Why even bring up money? Why suggest that a man being a financial plan is relevant at all? Why plant that idea unless you're implying that Aurora might be interested in Brody for the wrong reasons? It subtly reframes the relationship in a suspicious light, as if love, compatibility, and commitment couldn't possibly be enough. And coming from someone who did rely on a man for financial security, the comment lands with a bit of irony. Once again, what's presented as loving guidance feels more like quiet manipulation. Not loud, not cruel, but careful, calculated, and just enough to make a daughter second-guess herself.
By the way, let's talk about reality for a second. Brody is in basic training. Soldiers are not exactly rolling in money, especially at the beginning. So is that what this is really about? Is Robyn uncomfortable with the fact that Brody isn't going to have some huge income right out of the gate? Because I'm honestly confused. Did she really say, with a straight face, that a man should not be a financial plan? Robyn, of all people. Let's rewind to Becoming Sister Wives, Chapter 1. Actually, several early chapters. Robyn herself wrote that if she ever married again, she wouldn't care what her husband looked like. Old or young, fat or skinny, it didn't matter. None of the superficial stuff mattered anymore. What mattered was that he was a good man and a good husband. And then she gets more specific. She wanted a man whose sole priority was taking care of his family. She expected anyone interested in marrying her to prove himself as caring, unselfish, and strong. She made it clear she wasn't taking any chances. Translation: looks didn't matter, age didn't matter, but providing for her absolutely did. That doesn't sound like someone who wasn't looking for a financial plan. It sounds exactly like someone who was. And in the very same book, literally the same book, Robyn also writes about how her own mother didn't support her relationship with Kody. Of all her relatives, her mom struggled the most with her decision. Her mom even blocked Robyn on Facebook because she didn't want to deal with the questions that would come up. Her mother worried Robyn was putting her children in harm's way. She was especially concerned because Robyn's first marriage had been unstable and damaging, and Robyn was only just starting to find her footing as a single mom. From her mom's perspective, this didn't look responsible. It looked rushed, it looked risky, and it looked like Robyn wasn't fully considering how this would affect her kids. Robyn admits that hearing this was difficult, but she dismissed it anyway. She says she knew she was bringing her children into the most wonderful family she'd ever seen and giving them the best father imaginable. Looking back now, that statement is something. Because what it really sounds like is this: Robyn is projecting her own past insecurities, mistakes, and fears onto her daughter. Aurora is a fully capable adult woman. She doesn't have children, she isn't dragging kids into a chaotic family system, she isn't rushing into anything unstable. That was Robyn. Robyn was the one bringing children into chaos. Robyn was the one making a massive, life-altering decision while still trying to get back on her feet. Robyn was the one being warned by her own mother and choosing not to listen. And now, instead of recognizing that difference, she's placing that same fear onto Aurora's relationship, where it doesn't actually belong. This also lines up with another revealing moment from Robyn's book. She writes that several years before marrying Kody, when she was at the absolute lowest point in her life, she made a list of everything she wanted to accomplish. Things were so bad that she allowed herself to dream as big as possible. And that context matters, because when you look at the choices she made afterward, it becomes harder to believe that money, stability, and security weren't major motivating factors. So when Robyn warns Aurora that a man shouldn't be a financial plan, it doesn't sound like wisdom. It sounds like projection, and maybe even a little guilt, wrapped up as concern, served with a smile. Here's what Robyn says was on her list during that low point in her life: change the world, meet Oprah, write a bestseller, and own a business. She looks back now and says, be careful what you wish for, because you just might get it, and it might not be what you wanted.
She goes on to admit that while she can't deny the positive impact sister wives had on her life, there are days she wakes up and thinks, I don't want to do this anymore. I want everything to go back to normal. And then comes the realization, being on television completely changed how she entered the family. She says that during the first season, many fans saw her as a homewrecker who came in to destroy Meri, Janelle, and Christine, which is kind of exactly what happened. What this really sounds like is that Alice, Rollins' mom, tried to warn her. She may have encouraged Robyn to establish herself before jumping into a situation she didn't fully understand. And maybe Alice sensed that whatever was happening in Kody's household wasn't something her daughter should rush into. But instead of sitting with that perspective, Robyn leaned hard into the victim role. I didn't do anything wrong. I brought my kids into this amazing family. Fast forward a few years and Robyn's tune changes. Suddenly the family is terrible. The environment was awful. Her kids were supposedly so damaged by the experience that they don't even want to get married. That's the story she tells now. And yet here we are. Aurora is 23 years old. Not 16, not 15, not a sheltered teenager. She's a grown woman, very likely a college graduate, fully capable of holding a full-time job, taking care of herself, and making adult decisions. And yet she still lives at home, apparently because her mother continues to coddle and control her. So when Aurora finally has a relationship, Robyn steps in with this carefully crafted message. This isn't really about Aurora and Brody. It's between Aurora and God. Aurora, to her credit, gently but clearly pushes back. She points out that she isn't making any decisions without Brody, that they'll decide together. It's a subtle moment, but it's important. She's quietly asserting her adulthood and setting a boundary, even if her mom doesn't fully respect it. If I were Aurora, I'd be more than a little annoyed. This whole scene feels less like concern for a daughter and more like reputation management. Robyn isn't just talking to Aurora, she's talking to the audience. She's reframing herself as the deeply godly woman who had a divine vision about Kody, the one whose bursting bosom confirmed it was all God's will. And in the process, Aurora becomes a prop. Suddenly, the narrative shifts to Aurora isn't ready to be a wife. Aurora isn't ready to be a mother. Aurora needs to know herself first. And maybe that's true, but it feels less like wisdom and more like projection. Maybe Robyn is still wrestling with her own regrets and is placing them squarely on her daughter's shoulders. You can love your child without suffocating them. You can care without controlling. And you can offer guidance without undermining their choices. What you don't need to do is say things like, a husband isn't a financial plan, especially when we all watched what your financial plan was. It was a husband. Worse, the implication hangs in the air that maybe Brody isn't good enough, or that Aurora is only interested in him for security. Does Robyn really think so little of her daughter that she believes Aurora can make thoughtful, independent choices? And honestly, poor Brody. This kid is just trying to build a life, serve his country, and be in a committed relationship. Meanwhile, he's being quietly scrutinized, doubted, and reduced to a hypothetical paycheck that doesn't even exist. And all of that while cookies cool on the counter.
There's a woman on national television quietly planting the idea that this young man isn't good enough because he's in the military and doesn't make much money. Let's just say it plainly. That's what's happening. And I can't help but wonder, if Brody were part of the same religious group and pulling in a big income, would this conversation even exist? Honestly, if he were a good fundamentalist with a construction company, a big house, and a hefty paycheck, I'd bet money Robyn would be cheering this relationship on. No hesitation, no lectures, no concern about finding yourself. But because Brody is in the military and won't be able to provide the lifestyle Robyn imagines for her daughter, she's subtly tearing him down. And in the process, she's also tearing down Aurora, acting like her daughter isn't capable of making thoughtful adult decisions. This should have been a moment of pure support, a chance to be happy for her daughter, a chance to step back and let Aurora spread her wings just a little. Instead, Robyn finds a way to insert herself, steal the moment, and quietly sow doubt where there didn't need to be any. And here's something that adds even more context. One of Aurora's cousins, who was close to her when they lived in Pinedale, shared something telling. After the move, she and Aurora would do Zoom calls to stay in touch. Apparently, Preston, Aurora's biological dad, would sometimes sneak into those calls because Robyn often interfered. She didn't want them talking freely, even by phone or video. He missed his kids, and when Robyn was involved, the kids were always heavily coached, very careful about what they said. Aurora even jokingly, but tellingly, referred to Robyn as Mother Gothel, and behind the humor was something real. She reportedly felt suffocated, controlled, and unable to fully live her life. At this point, Aurora might as well be Cinderella. She's the oldest daughter, so there's likely a lot of responsibility on her shoulders, helping with the house, caring for younger siblings, holding everything together.
On top of that, she's navigating her mother's emotional immaturity, a deeply dysfunctional marriage, and all of it playing out on reality television. And somehow, she's expected to smile through it and sell the idea that this man who adopted her is some incredible catch. It's exhausting just thinking about it. And then there's Brody. Honestly, I feel for him. He seems like a decent young man, trying to build a future, serve his country, and be in a committed relationship. But according to Robyn, he's not a financial solution. Therefore, Aurora needs to find herself, which translated really just means I don't approve of him. It's not subtle, not even a little. Robyn is painfully obvious here. The concern sounds spiritual, but the undertone is judgment. And instead of lifting her daughter up, she's weighing her down with doubt, fear, and projection. But those are just my thoughts. What do you think about this whole situation? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel and click the bell so you never miss a new video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye!